artifacts, yes, and they have to study artifacts historically, and then they have to describe it, and then they have to provide the history of that, and it is through that content that they'll learn the language in a very integrated way. So this is one of the scenarios, and I've already done this. So the scenario is called Cultural Exchange Program in Yucatan. The level of proficiency, the target level of proficiency is low intermediate. And the assessment focus is to evaluate the content understanding, to foster critical thinking and language use across interpretative, presentational, and interpersonal modes, along with the reflective mode that I just mentioned. In any type of assessment, we have at least 4 phases or steps. So the student wants to join a cultural exchange program in Mexico. They want to study not only the language, to improve their language proficiency, but also the archaeological studies. And so the phase 1, the student has to look for options suitable to his or her interest, and that would be the interpretive mode. But as you know, in real life, modes are not in isolation, so it is combined with something else. So it could be something that they listen to, something that they watch, or something that they read interpretatively, and then they have to do something with that, maybe in writing or in a presentation. The second phase is to write a formal email to the organization requesting information. That would be the presentational mode in writing. The third phase, phase 3, interview with the coordinator of the program, that would be the interpersonal mode. And the phase 4 would be to report on experience. And this can take the form of a oral or assisted with the AI. So, in all the instructions that the students get is not only in writing, but also in oral.
Hola, ¿cómo estás hoy? Relájate y disfruta de esta evaluación. En esta actividad, tienes que buscar información sobre programas de intercambio culturales en México. ¿Te gusta la idea? Luego, tendrás que comparar la información que encuentras.
Okay, so as you can see in Spanish, you say, okay, enjoy this assessment. Okay, so in a way, students really do not enjoy testing, right? But this is, in a way, it's like predisposing the students to something positive, right? I am going to learn while I'm being assessed. So the information they get then, as I said before, in writing and oral. And as you can see, the avatar is really very friendly, and so the students, we think, relax. And they are ready to enjoy it.
Hola.
Okay. So the search is done in 2 ways. It could be depending, because this type of assessment lasts or extend for a period of 1 week, sometimes we do that, or just 2 days, right? So it all depends on the time you assign this assessment, which is low stake, before they take a summative assessment, yes? There are 2 ways of doing this. Either the instructor does the search, so it is a pre-digested search, or we can also provide the students with at least 3 AI-powered searchers like Claude, Perplexity, Text Cortez, and Gemini, and they have to find information. As I told you before, it is like a problem-solving thing, so they have to employ critical thinking and problem-solving, and they have to evaluate the information they get, right, in order to compare and contrast. And not only that, linguistically speaking, but also then they are going to compare and contrast the searches, and they are going to say which one was the best informative one. So the competencies that are assessed here as pragmatic competence, understanding how information is structured and presented in summary articles, and then the cultural competence, grasping the cultural significance of exchange program in the Yucatan Peninsula. And so this is the instructions or the steps that they have to follow: search and explore, compare, and then reflect, decide, and justify. The benefits that the students see is that students can independently explore and evaluate real summer programs that meet their specific needs. all while practicing their Spanish in a practical and relevant context. And so, the problem we do, so they have to find the most suitable program within certain constraints. And so they have to find a program which goes from May to July because they don't have any more time. It has to provide the students with intermediate Spanish with respect to the language program they are seeking because they are doing low intermediate at Princeton, so they have to find something which is intermediate. Then the focus, it should be to participate in archaeological work or discoveries, preferably with a team of professors specializing in this area. And the cultural experience, it should be a program hosted that, where they provide host families for them to stay at. So, this is more or less what they find. This is real time programs, right? And then they have to fill out this quadro or chart, comparative chart. So with respect to the program flexibility, cultural immersion opportunities, possibilities of improving Spanish, unique experiences offered, costs and duration, and the academic recognition. And then the most important thing is the pros for me and the cons for me, so they have to decide according to their preferences and wants and needs. Another thing that we do, just not to let them find and copy and paste information, we want them to go deeper and to see, for example, to take 5 words or phrases that they have learned in doing this search, any grammatical element that they learned in this search, do things about Mexico or these type of programs that they didn't know, in one aspect of the programs that surprised them. Reflect on your comprehension strategies also and the effectiveness of this search. In phase 2 is they have to write a formal email to the organization and like asking for more information. And in this particular one, it all depends again on what you want the students to do. But in this one, I didn't ask them to, so AI assistant is not allowed for this phase in which they have to write. Students must rely on their language skills, organizational skills, linguistic accuracy, inquiry skills, etc. And also strategic competence and cultural competence. In phase 3, the students prepare for an interview. And this is going to be a mock interview in which we kind of gauge their interpersonal communication skills. So the interview in this scenario simulates a real-world interview experience, helping students practice formal communication, persuasion, and demonstrating their preparedness for a complex and demanding program. So that's what I said. What we are going to assess here is open interaction, fluency, and accuracy in response. Competencies, pragmatic competence, and strategic competence. And, like, for example, handling spontaneous conversation, asking clarifying questions, and expressing interest effectively. And so now I'm going to give the floor to Ben, who's been working with me on this type of assessment.
Hello, I'm Ben Johnston. I'm an educational technologist at Princeton University. I'm probably the only staff member here. So I would encourage you to work with a staff member, bring them to the next conference, because I would love to meet and work with, collaborate with more people who are involved in supporting projects like this. At Princeton, we have quite a bit of experience building chatbots of various sorts. Mostly because we wanted to explore the prompt engineering more than one can using the public-facing OpenAI website. So if you build your own chat interface, which is not terribly difficult, I'm not a programmer really, I'm just an educational technologist. It's not so difficult. You can have very long prompts in the background. The problem often that we found with chatbots in general is people don't write long enough prompts. They need to be very detailed. So we have quite a bit of experience writing these kinds of things, but in this phase of Adriana's scenario-based assessment, we want oral assessment. We want students speaking. So we went out and looked. In the last year, there's really been an explosion of chatbots online that allow you to speak into the microphone. And they're commercial products. Like language learning has had forever, since the Rosetta Stone, you might say, of technologies where you can learn by using it 10 minutes a day, which is nonsense, right? So there's lots of this stuff. There's one called Pretty Polly that impressed us, actually. It allows you to create scenarios, so create these characters that students can then talk to. And there's all different types of scenarios, and you can write these prompts yourself. One funny one is this Sally, who's the nosy, gossipy neighbor. So I thought that was neat. But it's a nice platform. But the chances of Princeton University getting a campus license to something like Pretty Polly is the same as the chance of my 17-year-old son being accepted to Princeton. Right? So there are many, many tools out there, right? It would be great to pick something off the shelf and use it, but there's also a lot of questions. FERPA, was talked about earlier. Student data, can we kind of control that in some way? Can we integrate it with the Canvas learning management system, perhaps? Can we store the data? Can we keep the evidence of learning? So if students are having interactions with chatbots, can we store that in a database and go back and look at it? It's difficult to do with a lot of the commercial products. Do we really want students going out creating student accounts on these commercial entities? And they cost a lot. I think that Pretty Polly was something like $40 a month. So it's crazy expensive. So we're not getting a Canvas license. So we put some variation of the chatbot together with these different personalities. So you can see there's different names. These should be all AI-generated faces. I hope none of these people are here today. And below them are descriptions. So we've got the director of the overseas program that sends students to the Yucatan Peninsula. There's a waiter in an Argentinian restaurant for different types of scenarios. So this is the professor that oversees that program, for example. I don't have a video or anything, but you can see on the right-hand side there are there's feedback comments about the student's performance. And we just do that as part of the prompt. We tell the AI chatbot, please provide feedback, give it back in this certain format that we can then extract and show on the screen. And
hello, my name is Professor Paloma Sanchez. I am in charge of... Hello, my name is Professor Paloma Sanchez.
It's pretty good.
In charge of
this is all within AI, OpenAI. Sorry. Well, I did in English, yeah. So, and it's also modular. So each one of those personas, each one of those people can be pulled out, and we can put it into Canvas, we can put it into the course blog, we can put it into another website and move them around. And rewrite their profiles also. So maybe this character gets more information as the semester progresses. We can add that to the prompt, and she will change over the semester. And that brings me finally, lastly, to the anatomy of an AI prompt. I said it needs to be really long or well thought out as well, at least. And these are kind of the elements that I like to include in every AI prompt for this project. The role, what is this person going to be? What's their name? What's their job? The tone, this says, you should sound friendly, educational, professional, and enthusiastic. And it actually works. Target audience, you'll speak in short sentences with simple languages because you're speaking to beginners of the Spanish language. Feedback, please provide feedback in grammar, appropriate use of vocabulary, pragmatic speech acts, etc. And finally, speak short sentences. Yes, ChatGPT can often send back paragraphs of text, which is really boring to listen to. So I will stop there.
Okay. All right. So we go to the phase 2, and this is the presentational mode. And of course they have to present something. Usually it is the traditional one, they prepare the slides and everything. But we go a step further and we ask the students to, for example, to present that presentation which is informative, to turn it into a commercial. Yes, advertising this program. So they have to use AI to produce a video, right? And so they come up with this, which this is made in video, I don't know if you know it, but they write the prompt. And so they put it to the in-video thing, and then this video is generated, but it's their work. Actually, I polished it a bit, but it was with mistakes and everything.
Hola a todos. Hoy quiero contarles sobre mi increíble experiencia en la península de Yucatán el verano pasado. Fui parte de un programa de cultura e idioma español que fue fantástico. Aprendí muchísimo, no solo español, sino también sobre las ruinas mayas. Un profesor y arqueólogo nos enseñó sobre artefactos importantes y la historia. Me quedé con familias locales, donde aprendí mucho de ellos y me divertí. Fue mi mejor verano. Si tienes la oportunidad, no te lo pierdas.
Okay, I don't know, the sound is kind of low, but I don't know.
Hola a todos.
No.
Now, please
So
reflect on your learning.
this would be the AI-assisted reflective mode in which we ask the students to reflect upon their own learning. This could be done in English or in Spanish. It all depends. This is like a basic Spanish, so they do this in English. And this is the little mic for them to record themselves.
Now, please reflect on your learning experience, particularly the impact of AI-driven tools. Are you ready? 1. How did AI tools affect your way of learning and practicing Spanish during this assessment? 2. Mention at least 5 structures, phrases, or vocabulary that you learned while completing this assessment. 3. Would you use AI-based applications or platforms to get more prepared before visiting Spanish-speaking countries? Justify your answer. 4. Did you notice any difference in oral or written interactions when using AI-driven technology versus traditional personal interactions? Be specific.
Well, I think that you've got an idea of the type of question we ask and what they have to reflect on. And of course, I'm going to move forward because I know that I don't have the time to look into the evaluation and scoring, but I know that one of my colleagues after me, they're going to talk about that. But okay, so please feel free if you want to discuss that afterwards. So what are the takeaways? So the pluses and the minuses using all this technology. The pluses are, well, for us, actually great potential for teaching, learning, and assessment. There's a lot of potential in feedback and feed forward. All these language models actually are becoming more and more complex and advanced in giving feedback and detecting all kinds of mistakes. Like, for example, last year, yes, when I tried and experimented with evaluating, for example, grammatics, that was out of the question. Nowadays, you know that they can detect, for example, speech acts, and they do a pretty good job at doing that. Also, with this technology and this advancement in tone, Ben mentioned tone, so there is this effective study, like the study of feeling and sentiment analysis in AA. So we are getting there. So this is very promising. It is significant for me, for us, help for second language instructors. It enhances productivity and creativity, productivity for the teacher also. It revolutionizes education, like at one point smartphones and early internet. I witnessed that. I don't know if you did, but it was like more or less the same revolution. It's a powerful tool when combined with human intelligence. I always make an emphasis on that artificial intelligence would be nothing if there wasn't human intelligence behind. The minus is, well, we need to establish appropriate boundaries for student use. There are several issues that we still have to address, like ethical issues, legal policies. For example, at Princeton, because of the honor code that bind the students not to cheat, we do have some kind of policy against checking for plagiarism. We do not do that, but the university has not provided yet, it's under discussion, any legal policy about AI. So we do have, like for example, in our syllabus, that at the time of summative testing or summative tests, we do not have to use AI, and that will be partially penalized. But we don't have policies, right? So that's something that we have to address. We need to change our teaching methodologies because the students are changing the way they learn. So we have to adapt to their learning as well. And also I believe that it should be training. There should be training also for teachers. There is also the risk of over-reliance on AI, and then potential to undervalue human intelligence and creativity. I don't think that is the case, but maybe. But so, as the last word then, AI is an ally and not an enemy, and we should see that. And so, I think that we are done.
Thank you.
Okay, and of course, let me talk.
Thank you all.
So, that's all. Yeah? Maybe.
Hello. Okay, thank you so much for the talk. Now we are hosting Spyridon Simotas from University of Virginia. He will be talking about tools as tutors in a feedback role in language learning. Thank you.
Cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you. Yes.
I was saying thank you for the introduction. Thank you to Veronica who invited me to be here with you today. Thank you, all of you, for welcoming us in your campus. So I'm very happy to be here and have this conversation with you about AI. And I hope that you are all that you have all been enjoying your symposium so far. So I think my screen is not showing. It's not. So my talk has 5 parts, approximately 5 minutes each. And I would like to start with comparing the writing process to an odyssey and to challenge this idea of the proverbial one page. So writing has always been hard work. Anyone who has ever written anything knows that that dreadful feeling of the blank page. And no matter the device that you're using, electronic or analog, as a writer you embark on a journey filled with potential and uncertainty. Will the writer managed to complete that mission. Just like Odysseus, the writer must endure many challenges, confront demons, overcome obstacles, fend off temptations and distractions, while maintaining their focus to gets to the finish line. Just like Odysseus, but Odysseus is not alone. Despite being a man of many devices, at critical moments in his journey, the gods intervene for some extra guidance and assistance. My favorite intervention is the bag of wings given to Odysseus by the god of winds to help him sail back home, but his crew opened the bag willingly, releasing the wings and creating a storm and veering their boat off course. So, if the protagonist of the story gets all the help from above, all this help from above, how about the poet? So here is the beginning of Odyssey by the new translation by Emily Wilson, and it reads, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just the highlighted parts. Tell me about a complicated man, Muse. Tell me how he wandered and was lost. Tell the old story for our modern times. Find the beginning. In her introduction, Emily Wilson recounts the difficulty for scholars to understand how the poem was created, by which process did a song from the oral tradition and ended up in the written form that we know today. And when that happened, was it the creation of one single mind or a collaboration between multiple singers and scribes? The consensus among scholars today is that the fixing of the poem in its writing form was a collaborative work. So receiving external help and collaboration are key concepts not only in the narrative itself, but also in the way in which the poem was created. And why is that important for us today, especially as we think about generative AI? First, because it is intriguing. I find the similarities between invoking the muse and prompting an LLM very intriguing. So both serve as requests for inspiration, guidance and assistance in the creative process. The invocation was a plea to divine inspiration, while the prompt is a request for some sort of algorithmic assistance. Both acknowledge the presence of something bigger. The poet, with humility and reverence, recognizes that the work is not solely his own, but derived from divine influence, while the LLM user understands that there is that an LLM can augment their own capacities. Both act as starting points. While the invocation to the muse was part of a traditional ritual, the prompt is an additional option that the contemporary writer has to surface something from the LLM and then shape it to their own needs and tastes. Which brings me to the second reason why I think this parallel is important. Because it reminds us also that the story itself, when it was finally written down, it was nothing new. Odysseus' adventures were floating in the consciousness of the audience at the time. And in other words, and if I may use this anachronism, he was already in the collective database. So in a sense, prompting an LLM could be seen as a modern technological parallel to the ancient tradition of invoking the muses. And if Homer gets this assistance from the muse, if Odysseus himself manages to get home thanks to gods who take pity on him and intervene to support him at critical moments, don't our students deserve some support when faced with the daunting blank page? The bad news. you have all seen the headlines. They run the gamut from academic dishonesty to the death of language learning, adios, or even the decline of higher ed in general. The commercial release of large language models a couple of years ago caught us, as educators, flat-footed and elevated academic dishonesty to our #1 concern. And that at a time when education is already facing a multi-layered existential crisis plagued by a utilitarian vision, learn what you need to get a job, and the sweeping logic of return on investment, often at odds with long-standing humanistic values and traditions. One of the most common business practices today is outsourcing. In the name of efficacy or efficiency and cost reduction, a wide range of tasks, functions, or processes from one company are outsourced, externalized, contracted to another company. And the emergence of this technology, the emergence of large language models, raises the question, this provocative question, are we now incentivized to also outsource some of our own cognitive functions to these systems? Many fear that we might, especially when the value proposition of higher education is becoming increasingly unclear in the asset economy, as it was shown by Eric Baker in his recent article in the Harper's Magazine. What are you going to do with that? So if students are tempted to choose convenient, rapid flyovers that are AI generated instead of slow, deep dives into their materials, they're not the ones to blame. They're just operating in a larger system in which all forms of humanistic erudition, such as memorizing large amounts of facts or achieving mastery in a very specialized field of knowledge, is no longer marketable. In many cases, even skills acquired outside of the classroom, networking, leadership, entrepreneurship, are those that are most highly sought after in the marketplace. So given these concerns, some scholars have started to point out the limitations of AI. And for the sake of this presentation, I'm just going to focus on two of those articles. One is called Now the Humanities Can Disrupt AI, written by Goodlott and Baker. And the other one is Grounding AI, Understanding the implications of generative AI in world language and cultural education, written by Jonathan Beals. And surprisingly, both emphasize that the humanistic inquiry might be our unfair advantage in this strange new AI-driven world. So, for example, Beals in his article argues that AI systems lack 4 fundamental qualities that are at the heart of human communication and understanding: embodiment, personal history, intuition, and intersubjectivity. So, trained on data, LLMs cannot replicate these core human traits. In addition, Goodlott and Baker highlight the unreliable sources the models have been trained on that perpetuate biases, stereotypes, and in a lot of cases, misinformation. So instead of trying to compete with AI, why don't we embrace what makes us human? This is a chance to reimagine education that prioritizes critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, that encourages students to think hard about tough questions, to experiment, to fail, to try again, because this is how we learn. And that messiness of being human gives us basically an edge over AI. And in an ideal world, liberal arts education should be the reflection of that. But should we wait until higher ed goes through this transformative process? And what happens if it doesn't? Is there any other productive way forward? So the flip side is the AI tutors. And I use this word very broadly. To me, it's like I like to think of it as a deus ex machina that at critical moments just appears and provides assistance. So while some scholars emphasize limitations of AI and advocate for an education that cultivates uniquely human qualities, others explore AI's affordances that could lead to a positive impact on learning. One of my colleagues at UVA, Anton Korinek, a professor of economics, refers to generative AI as the most powerful cognitive force multiplier, and that it's becoming one of the most indispensable skills for students in their academic and professional careers. In the literature of teaching and learning, the idea of personalized learning is among the most prevalent affordances of this new technology. GenAI guru Ethan Mollick from Wharton School and entrepreneur Sal Khan from Khan Academy make the case for personalized learning with AI. So these are their respective books that were both published this year, and they argue that the solution to that AI could be a potential solution to the 2 sigma problem. And the 2 sigma problem was revealed by Benjamin Bloom in 1984, and it refers to this observation that students who receive one-on-one tutoring perform 2 standard deviations better than those whose learning just comes from instructional methods of a conventional classroom. So even if students receive regular formative feedback, the simple fact of having one teacher for many students makes it impossible basically to replicate the effectiveness of tutoring. So AI tutoring systems for Mollick and Khan would offer a scalable and cost-effective solution to that problem. So I know what you might be thinking. First question, are these AI tutors are going to take my job? And haven't we tried already those teaching machines in the past and failed? And to those questions, Audrey Waters, to the anxieties and the skeptics out there, offers some responses and some relief. In her book, sorry, I don't have the cover here. In her book, Teaching Machines, she traces the origins of efforts that have been made to automate learning since the beginning of the 20th century. And she cautions against mindless adoptions of technology in education because the expansion of technocracy doesn't always have ours and our students' best interests in mind. And yet, we have no evidence at this point to doubt that AI might help, indeed, with the 2 sigma problem, making this this pipe dream of one-on-one tutoring come true. AI excels in pattern recognition, which means that at any given moment, an AI tutor can compare a student's work against the expected outcomes and detect knowledge gaps, provide adequate support, boosting students' self-efficacy, which is a key to student success. So against, to the anxious among you, AI tutors are not supposed to be a substitute for teachers, for human teachers, but an additional resource. And the most thought-provoking response to this question, in my view, comes from, we've seen it earlier today, from Godwin and Jones, distributed agency. We've seen that article being mentioned this morning too. And Godwin Jones, in his article, examines the role of AI in sentient language acquisition through the framework inspired by social materialism. It expands the ecological framework, positioning learner, teacher, and machine, and world in a perpetual, ever-changing relationships where humans are not the only dominant agents. So in that sense, in that context, AI can act like a competent partner and an adaptive, intelligent tutor rather than a mere tool. And the teacher acts like a content expert, designing the guide and guiding the learning experience, while an AI tutor primarily provides just timely formative feedback adapted to the student's needs. So in that scenario, you have a very nice collaborative division of labor. So what I am doing with my students, what I have started to do with my students last summer is I've introduced this idea of AI tutor during their written assignments. But first of all, I have to say that I'm a yellow light. So the traffic light analogy is usually, it's commonly used to refer to one's stance regarding AI. So that means that I don't ban AI completely, which would have been the red light, and I don't fully permit it either, which would have been the green light, but I allow it with some restrictions. I am, however, and we've seen that in the previous talk too, critical of the plethora of apps and that are marketed to education, to the educational sector, with the promise of making learning frictionless. This marketing claim misrepresents the true nature of learning, which is inherently slow, recursive, and complex. And take writing, for example. So I want my students to experience the chaotic and messy process of writing, especially in the early stages of brainstorming and drafting. And I don't want to undermine this development, the development of these skills, introducing generative AI too early to assist them with their drafts. But I don't want them to feel completely lost either, or unsupported. So I moved all the writing in class. And it happens during, so each writing assignment happens in class during 2 or 3 writing workshops. And we start with planning and drafting, which will happen in 1 day. And then we go to revising and editing, which will happen in the subsequent workshop. After the first workshop, I provide some feedback to my students, very broadly, just to see, I'm looking at their papers to see if they're on the right track. But in the revision process is where we introduce Copilot. And I say Copilot because it's UVA's official GenAI tool. we are a Microsoft institution, so we have it comes with Microsoft Office and all that stuff, and it is a safe place. So students can upload their own work, and it's protected. Copilot does not use this data to train the future models. And in Copilot, they, oops, I went too far. And with Copilot, students get feedback, and since all that is happening in class, it allows us to discuss, to have a conversation about it, and to compare what the students has written, like usually in 2 columns, to compare what the students has written, what the Copilot has suggested, and have a conversation and back and forth and decide whether we want to integrate that output in our writing or not. And I find this to be the most valuable teaching moment, with in the process. So I wanted to present you here. I wanted I summarized here the reflections of my students of the summer course that I taught last summer. It was an 8-week immersive course for beginner French students. And initially, students found Copilot to be somewhat helpful, particularly in identifying grammar and spelling errors, as well as providing suggestions for improvement. However, some students felt that Copilot's feedback was too broad or not specific enough to their writing. I must also say that I had given them a prompt that I had engineered, let's say, to not give direct responses, but to give suggestions and hints. That doesn't always work. There are always, like in the 2nd or 4th iteration, you can get a response back from this model. So, we can't really fight that. But the conversation was most important. So students noted also that Copilot sometimes provided irrelevant and unnecessary suggestions. As students progressed through the writing assignments, their opinions on Copilot started to diverge. Some students continued to find Copilot beneficial, especially in catching minor errors and offering word choice suggestions. And they appreciated that quick feedback that helped them to iterate multiple drafts. On the other hand, some students found Copilot less helpful as they advanced with their writing skills. They preferred to get feedback directly from the instructors, and I say instructors because we were 5 teaching different sessions of the same course. And they found this feedback more they found deeper, and they helped them understand their mistakes a little bit better. So these students found also that Copilot suggestions were sometimes too advanced for their current level of French, which is something that I had already imagined when I was, and that's why I wanted to have a conversation with them before having them integrate the outputs in the writing. So because of that, in some cases, they forewent from using Copilot entirely, relying only in the built-in spell checker and grammar checkers in Google Docs. They found these resources more valuable and rewarding for their learning process. 5 minutes? Yes, we can do that. I wanted to read you here the reflection, or rather what one of my students wrote in their final survey of this class. She said, the amount of feedback it can give regarding content is useful for someone unaccustomed to writing papers. But as a fourth-year college student, I find much of this advice to be wholly redundant. It also frequently sources from Reddit, which shows the links at the bottom, and she found this not very impressive, especially in an academic environment. So the student, what the student points out here is what a recent research has found also, that those, at least for now, those who benefit the most from the AI technology are those who are less competent, have less experience in their domain. For them, when their skills are coupled with AI, they gain a 43% increase, whereas the most skilled professionals, on the other hand, they gain only 17%. And the obvious part was, the sources, like the quality of the sources, and where do these AI get their data from, and what they're trained with. So, and I wanted to finish with this quote, and go back to the bag of winds too. So this quote from, again, another recent book by Naomi Barron, who says that there is one area where modern AI programs seem to excel, and that's in editing and writing. The question is how much we want them to. So I wanted to reflect a little bit on this quote, because at first it seems like a plot twist. Not long ago, the hype around AI was about self-driving cars. Today, as AI is still struggling to find its place behind the wheel, it is already driving education in a whole new uncharted territory. So my attention to this quote is drawn here to how much, because it implies an effort of finding a measured approach between computational and human collaboration, between an artisanal and a more industrial form of writing. And finding the right dosage aligns with my own approach, informed by the pharmacological nature of technology. And this is a concept that I borrow from French philosopher Bernard Stiegler. Stiegler's deep understanding of technology led him to conclude that all technologies are pharmaca, which is Greek for drugs, medicine. While medicine taken in the right dose can cure, too much of it, or any other improper administration of it, can intoxicate. Comparing AI to a medicine of the mind, it is obvious then how it can alter certain faculties, either in a positive or a negative way. And the cautionary tale of the bag of winds that I mentioned earlier is also relevant here. We are handling a very powerful technology, and we need to be thoughtful, skillful, and very responsible with it. In the coming decades, I hope that we, as a society, will have identified and mitigated the harmful applications of GenAI. By then, the reasons and importance of student writing should be clear, and the need to avoid completely delegating the writing process to an AI would be widely understood. This is crucial to prevent the catastrophic consequences of what Bernard Stiegler again calls the proletarization of the mind, which means a progressive atrophy of our cognitive abilities as a result of an increased AI dose. Voila. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for the talk. And now our next lecture will be Takako Aikawa from MIT. She will be talking about Unlearn, Relearn, and Transform with language pedagogy in the age of AI.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me today. So the title of my talk today is Unlearn, Relearn, and Transform Fluid Language Pedagogy in the Age of AI. Now, the agenda that I'd like to discuss is, I'd like to first address the question of what is the value of learning foreign languages in the age of AI. This is an important question for us as language teachers to tackle. I'd like to also ask to think about the question of what is learning in the age of AI. Second, I'd like to discuss how can we coexist with AI and develop AI-enhanced language pedagogy. And here, I'd like to introduce a high-level overview of the new class that I have been developing, which I call Fluid Language Pedagogy. And then I'd like to discuss what is the role of language teacher in the age of AI, and I will wrap up my presentation by giving concluding remarks. So when I give a talk, AI and language education, I often start with this article, which is coming from The Atlantic, The End of Foreign Language Education. So thanks to AI, people may no longer feel the need to learn a second language. And it is true with the most recent GPT-4 Omni, we can actually have a universal AI translator, speech-to-speech translation for multiple languages. So we may not see the value of learning foreign languages. That being the case, what is the value of learning foreign languages? What is the value of learning foreign languages in the age of AI? Now, this is really important. Now, before diving into this question, I'd like us to think about the question of what is learning in the age of AI? We know AI can give us all sorts of knowledge and answer all our questions pretty much flawlessly pretty soon in the future. And our children will have personalized AI assistant, and they can ask questions to this AI assistant and get all the answers. That being the case, what is the value of learning, and why do children have to go to school to learn? Now, I'm also very intrigued by this question. Does learning require effort or even suffering? So when I was a child, I had to learn Japanese characters. Also, when I learned English, I suffered a lot. So for me, learning is closely associated with suffering. So what is learning? So I Googled it, and I think everybody knows about neurons and synapses, so I'm going to skip it. But I didn't know this substance called myelin. So neurons get connected through synapses, but you need myelin, which actually transmit information from one neuron to other. And important thing is, suffering actually spars the production of myelin. So this sausage-shaped part is myelin. And what is called productive struggle, which seems to be actually well established in the field of mathematics. So productive struggle spurs the production of myelin. So notions such as failure, struggle, messing up are of course important.
And for me, there's a distinction between knowing and really learning. So AI might be able to provide many dots of knowledge, but having dot itself doesn't constitute learning, and it doesn't help our memory. Learning requires connecting dots and transmitting information. And for that process, we need struggle and failure and messing up. Now, returning to the question of, sorry, my animation is totally wrong. It's supposed to be one by one coming. So what is the value of learning foreign languages in the age of AI? I believe learning foreign languages has unique values. One, language learning is a process of struggle, and it facilitates expanding our cognitive competence. So when I learned English, say English is the head initial and the Japanese is head final, the word orders are totally opposite. It was a big struggle for me, but that struggle probably helped me expanding my cognitive competence. And second, language learning helps us understand ourselves and enhances our global competence. So learning foreign languages exposes us to different language and different culture, which actually makes us think or help us understand our own language and culture, which in turn enhances our global competence. Furthermore, language learning actually enables us to establish interpersonal connection with people from different linguistic and cultural background. So, by contrast, machine-mediated communication, there's no effort or struggle. Machine can do everything for you. So no stimulus to your cognitive competence. And furthermore, we don't know what words or what nuance are being carried over, so no control over our communication. I don't think we can establish trust and an interpersonal connection through this machine-mediated communication. By contrast, human-to-human communication, we see facial expressions, we understand the nuance, tone of voice. So, only human-to-human actually communication can establish a trust and interpersonal connection. And in that sense, AI will not diminish the value of learning foreign languages. Now, no matter what we say, AI will stay with us, and AI will be integral to education, not only to education, but to many fields in the future. Then how can we coexist with AI and develop AI-enhanced language pedagogy? So, how to coexist with AI? I believe that our communication skills with AI through prompt writing and understanding what AI can or cannot do are essential to coexisting with AI. So I've been advocating for the importance of learning prompt writing, and that way we can understand AI's limitations and possibilities. I think that's very important. What about developing AI-enhanced pedagogy? I believe there are several key elements in developing AI-enhanced language pedagogy. First, understanding the differences between the two types of intelligence, human intelligence and AI, and investigating how human intelligence and AI can complement each other, and importantly, asking ourselves what would be the added value of using AI. Finally, revisiting the goal of language education. Now, as you know, so AI has amazing generative power, not only text generation, but image and voice, and then also nowadays videos. And AI has a wide range of information available 24/7. It's good at repetitive works. AI does not complain, and AI is very patient. By contrast, humans are good at nurturing creativity, social skills, and collaboration. We can provide emotional support and motivation. We use multimodalities, and we have intuition. So, in developing AI-enhanced pedagogy, I believe that we should take advantage of the strength of each type of intelligence. Now, it's imperative, I think, for us to ask ourselves, what is the added value of using AI? Why do we have to use AI for this activity? So a couple of weeks ago, my colleagues and I went to Stanford to give a workshop on AI and education. And we asked the participants to come up with some kind of activity using generative AI. And one group said, creating a poster using AI. And I asked the participants in that group, why do we need to use AI? What would be the added value of using AI? Many of them couldn't answer these questions. So I think it's always good for us to ask ourselves, what is the added value of using AI for particular activities? Finally, I think revisiting the goal of language education is important. As I mentioned at the beginning of my talk, so we already have a universal AI translator or interpreter. That being the case, the goal of language education needs to go beyond just teaching how to speak or communicate using the target language. AI-enhanced language education must offer additional value to entice people to learn foreign languages. Now the question is, what is it? I actually don't have a clear answer to that. However, I'd like to introduce one article which was written by Ray Kurzweil. He is a famous computer scientist and predicted AGI actually by 2049. This article is from MIT Technology Review. His point is, technologies do not diminish our humanity, but rather allow it to flourish. I'm going to cite his words. So, what will the next leap look like? So, in the past, education's primary goal was to nourish the mind and cultivate virtue. But the Industrial Revolution reframed education as training for economic success. So our students often, okay, let's go to good school, let's go to good companies. That actually trend deadened our students' natural curiosity and love of learning. I believe, and then Ray continues, he says, AI will let us be free to learn for its own sake, nurturing the knowledge and wisdom that define our humanity. I'm hoping that learning will become for the sake of learning. And that being the case, learning, sorry, the animation is not working, but learning has to be fun, and also student has to have intrinsic motivation and curiosity. So the concept of love of learning becomes really important in the future. Then, what about the role of a language teacher? Well, first of all, I'd like to erase the word teacher. And rather, we should be a coach or mentor or whatever you call. We need to be able to motivate our students, inspire students to learn foreign languages, which is quite a big challenge for us. Actually, a bigger challenge, actually, we are going to have. Now here, I'd like to introduce the kind of high-level overview of the class that I have been developing this semester. and which I hope is going to be a step toward fluid language pedagogy. Now, this project is called Collaborative and Adaptive Language Learning with Generative AI. It is supported by MIT's Alumni Class Fund. Basically, I will accept in this class students with various proficiency levels. So beginners, intermediate, advanced, everybody is welcome. No textbook. And each student works with what I call LangTA, called Language Teaching Assistant, powered by AI. So here, so each student works with LangTA, which is powered by AI. I'm sitting here as an assistant, and if students need me for help or verification, if students want to do person-to-person kind of practice, they can always come to see me. But this one is the kind of high-level overview. And currently, in this semester, I'm working on how to customize LLMs for various levels of students, together with a couple of MIT students. And I'm hoping that I can offer this course next academic year. Now, more important part actually for today's presentation is my motivation. So, experts in AI claim AI will revolutionize education by providing personalized learning. When people mention about personalized learning, but what does it mean by personalized learning? How can we integrate the concept of personalized learning into our existing school system? Now, it's supposed to move. What I meant here is, in the current school system, we put all the students in the same box. And we know each student has their own learning style and pace. Now, to me, the concept of personalized learning and the current existing school system seem to be kind of conflict with each other. Furthermore, at most institutions, a language curriculum is hierarchical or sequential, first year, second year, third year, fourth year. How can we integrate the concept of personalized learning into such a structure? So what I want to argue is the current school system is institutionalized, operating with an organized structure, with rules, putting all the students into one box. And if we are really seriously trying to incorporate AI-enhanced learning, and if AI-enhanced learning entails personalized learning, we need to have more fluid and flexible pedagogy. And maybe we need to deinstitutionalize the school system. That's a little bit provocative, but that might be necessary. So, concluding remarks. I believe one of AI's greatest contributions to language teachers this time is AI is really challenging us to re-examine the value of learning foreign languages while promoting a deeper exploration into the essence of human communication. And AI is giving us a great opportunity to unlearn and relearn language pedagogy. And as Ray says, AI will let us be free to learn for its own sake. I believe humanity or human nature will stand the test of time. So, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for this interesting conversation, well, lecture. Now it's time for, feel free to make your suggestions, comments. You have any question for any of the lectures? Yeah, it would be nice if you move to the front. Feel free to make questions. So it's time for comments, suggestions, reflections on the topics that we have been talking today.
Yes, I did everything in English, just
So the system prompt is in English. Have you experimented at all with providing the system prompt in Spanish, even if the instructions pertain to the nature of the conversation? And the reason I'm proposing this is that if you look at benchmark performance for these models across languages, the performance can really vary quite a bit.
absolutely. And that carries over to the text-to-speech engines as well. There's no point at which you tell it to speak in Spanish, for example. It infers that from the language of the prompts. And so the more Spanish you have, it seems to me, the better the voice is. So I'm sorry if I'm interrupting the question.
No, I mean, I guess I was wondering, if you compare the performance of the dialogue to the naturalness of the dialogue with a Spanish language system prompt versus an English language. I've had similar questions for analogous problems and found that you get kind of slightly better specificity if you keep everything in the same language.
That's my intuitive feeling. I don't have any real hard evidence, but I do. I made the prompts in English just for this presentation. Normally they would all be in Spanish from beginning to end in order to set the kind of mode for OpenAI to let it know that it should be conducting itself in Spanish, except for the feedback. We do say provide the feedback in English.
Any other question?
Yes, there are several actually that I'm using. That's very good because they're very expensive. Hey Jen is one of my favorite ones. DID is another one. Those are the ones that I remember. But yeah, the other one is Soul Machines. We are using that as well. Yeah. Soul Machines are incredibly good. They have the, you can have, it's expensive though, that's the only thing. But they have like sentiment analysis, they go with it, so the tone and the feelings you say, like for example you're sad or you want to sound enthusiastic, or, and they really do a great job at doing that. And it's the avatar that can interact in real time with the customer. But yeah, the customer, because it's meant to be for companies, right? Not with students. But that's another one that we use.
I was also wondering, I saw that in the reflection activity, there was a microphone so students respond. Is it on Canvas? How did you integrate it to the...
We are working, as I told you, we don't have commercial textbooks. We have a digital textbook that Ben created for us. And so we have the textbook, actually, which we call a Prendo, and it is a platform.
The Pressbook?
So the assessment platform is going to go along with that. So we're going to have the teaching learning platform and the assessment platform. And Ben is looking for a way to integrate that, both platforms, with Canvas. We have Canvas on Canvas.
Is it Pressbooks?
Is what?
Pressbooks? The OER platform?
Pressbooks. No, WordPress. We use WordPress for that.
WordPress.
Yeah. I think that the question of the avatars is an interesting one, and one we should do more research on. I find those avatars very distracting, and I think Nicole hinted this morning that students don't necessarily care for those anthropomorphized things as well. So I think there's room for research in whether those aid learning or may detract from learning. In the examples I showed, we chose explicitly to only show pictures of people. And I think that's a great benefit over having no picture at all. You are talking to someone, even if it's a still picture. But I think it's an interesting question of whether, and maybe those avatars will get better over time, but right now they're eerie, they're strange, they have overly big hands, there's something about it that's not quite right, and it's very distracting.
I have a couple of specific questions. First of all, thank you all for wonderful presentations. A question for Adriana. So one thing that I noticed that I think that I haven't seen so far, and that they haven't tried, is using AI to have students search for information. I was wondering if there's anything built into this activity that makes them figure out whether the information they're getting from Claude or ChatGPT, whatever they're using, is actually accurate and it's not hallucinating. Because in my own experience, I've never done it with students, I've never dared to, because when I search for information through, let's say ChatGPT, which is my go-to, it sometimes just makes up stuff, and so I have to go back off and prompt it, like, did you make anything up, or is this all based on real stuff? So I was just wondering if you have
I started doing that when I saw, like, for example, it was not just GPT and now GPT-4 that you have to pay for. I started doing my own research with Claude and Perplexity, and I don't know if you are using Perplexity, but I highly recommend it. It is really very good, and also not only that, but you have the references. And you double check the references, and it is actually taking you to a real book or article. Because sometimes ChatGPT does that hallucination thing. Not a lot on the version 4. Do you agree with me, right? Yeah.
One thing is, I think nowadays, GPT-4, for instance, if they don't have the data, then they will go search by itself and then give the link and then summarize the website or whatever they got. So they have different strategies trying to avoid the hallucination, I think.
And since I believe that, as Takako said before, like the thing is that we have to teach them, right? Use this appropriately. And in a way, this is an institute of learning as well. And so the thing that they have to go and see and corroborate that that information comes from a legit source is good for them. It's the same. It's not only just they Google it like we used to have, etc. And so, yeah, it takes a lot of time. That's why this type of assessment, you know, that they carry on.
So it is built into the
exactly.
science.
And then when they do actually put them together and they say, okay, so for me, Perplexity is by far the best one. That is my and Claude as well. Claude is very good. I mean, they have a lot because in the ethical arena, they're working a lot on that. So it's another.
No, makes sense. No, I was asking the question precisely because of Reddit reference, right? You know, like, where are they getting their information?
Yeah, it is true about the Reddit. I also corroborated that. Yeah, it is true, but that is ChatGPT. Yeah.
So then I have a question, I guess, to go down So we're also a Microsoft-based campus, and Copilot is our go-to. And so usually when I teach and when I try to incorporate AI into my classes, I tell my students, if you're paid for Claude or ChatGPT, go there. Because Copilot, in some ways, is not necessarily as able as an online platform. And so I wonder if this is something that you took into consideration when you were assessing the results of your students' reactions to working with it. Like I wonder if they had a chance to work with a different online platform like GPT-4o or Claude. I don't actually know if the results might have been different. Their own perception of what happened.
Yes. In class, I recommend that we all use the same platform, and the one that is available from the university is an equity consideration, basically. So we're all on the same level. Now, at home, I'm assuming that some students have access to more powerful models. And I have no idea what they're doing with them. I think I said earlier in a conversation, I'm somebody who likes technology, but I'm also someone who wants to use as less of it as possible. So I'm taking the baseline, like this is my go-to all the time, to take what is, available to everyone and what can we do with it without extra, tweaking or too much effort to, build something that we, at this point, we don't even know how it evolves and what we're building, whether it will last, next semester. So, at this point, I think we need to, be a little bit more mindful and just experiment with what we have and see, because the dust hasn't settled yet. It's changing every day almost. So let's see where that all goes. So, and for me, even beyond the chatbot business, I think that AI is getting integrated into the Microsoft suite. And this is where I'm more interested. And I showed you the screenshot of a blank page of a Microsoft document without anything written on it, and yet there is a ghost text, right? Use this command to ask anything or to generate a draft. So this is where it becomes interesting to me. Now we can just generate something and then, shape it like sculptures, into the form that we want it to. But to do so, we have to also be, I don't know, we need to have cultivated some sensitivity, right? We need to know what we're doing. We need to know what good writing is in order to do that even with GenAI. So I don't know if I answered your question. I just rambled.
Yeah, no. One more for somebody here.
So in response to that question, so in order to avoid the equity issue based on different platform, I think the ball is on our court. That is, I didn't talk or anything about assessment. So we need to really transform how to assess, for instance, and that way we can actually avoid that kind of inequity or inequality coming from different platforms. And so if we totally focus on process-based kind of assessment style as opposed to end product focused, maybe it doesn't matter.
Can I actually ask you a question? My last question. It's already here. Again, big representation. I think that actually the first part of the presentation, Takako, about the limitations of AI, what it can do and what it needs. But I have a specific question about the course that you were designing. And so the idea of personalized learning, if the premise is that students are all different and they're all in the same box, then I'm interested why you decided to put all the levels together to make them even more different.
Yes, so one, I didn't talk today, but in the proposal I wrote, okay, that is, so accepting different levels of students actually create a different space for collaboration. For instance, upper level advanced students could actually teach beginners. That kind of collaboration style never happens in the current like hierarchical class structure. So I kind of wanted to see what would happen if we create that kind of space. It's a different type of collaboration, and the beginners may learn from upper class students, and so that's one of the reasons.
But for bigger programs, where concept be institutionalized idea, I think is also good, even for bigger managed program, because we then, in that sense, we can accept different levels of students into the same classroom and creating a lot of sections, so that can fit into students' different schedule, right? So we can also attract, if that's feasible, then that will attract more students to all these classrooms, because if we say in a radio level we only have 2 sections now, and third year level 1 section, then if we offer 5 sections of all these, for any student can choose from all these 5 time slots, I think that's also a good idea.
Thank you. I'm not actually so okay, let's erase the whole class existing exactly. But gradually, the one other very concrete motivation for that kind of design is at MIT, Japanese 1, Japanese 2, so even numbers we offer spring semester, but odd numbers fall semester. If students have conflict in schedule, they have to wait 1 year to start. And I want to help them. So by creating, for instance, just 1 course, I can help maybe 5 to 10 students each year. That's the start. And then if we stabilize the kind of the setting, then we can expand it. So that was another story behind it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for all of your contributions. I have a general question. In the United States, we are teaching language education across many different languages within the national standards, which in the American Council on Teaching of Foreign Languages, we use the national standards for sort of benchmarks within all of the assessment. Some of us use the Common European Frame of Reference as benchmarks, and I'm curious to find out and to engage in a conversation with you how these national standards are in conversation with how we are also right now experimenting and using generative AI. Where does it come in? I heard many of us talk about assessment. I see different models of what students perhaps can do. how are we going to give feedback or feed forward, which I thank you with a lovely thought-provoking terminology. So in a way, I'm just trying to figure out, what does that mean? And where does it come in? I mean, the American Council has digital literacy as one of their benchmarks within the national standards. And I just thought maybe some of you had some ideas how it informs your sense making and the work that you engage in.
Well, Actful is working on that, right? And there is also a book on assessment, actually. It doesn't actually address AI, but it's this kind of integrative type of assessment that I was talking about, without the AI. But I think that they are working on AI and how to integrate that into the classroom. So they are working. I mean, there is an explosion of ideas about how to integrate AI in a safe way, without going into expenses, right? Yeah.
I'm very glad you came. I have a question. Do the students raise their level to a solid intermediate there with the project group?
Yes. We have 5 contact hours. So that is quite intense. And the students are kind of immersed the whole week. They are required to work outside the classroom 1 hour, 1.5 hours, depending on the level. The way, it's a holistic approach to language learning. So it's not that we do not see the grammar or whatever, but the grammar is integrated in all that we do. So I can say that pretty much they get to the second level, which is the second semester, with a low intermediate level of proficiency. And then by the end of the second semester, they are ready for more advanced, high intermediate, more advanced, which we do in the third semester.
Do you have a little oral interview with them at the end?
Yes, actually we do that. We have the oral assessments. Now with the AI we practice with the avatar and that kind of thing. And you know that it all depends on the student, but we ask them to produce oral speech from the very beginning. I mean, they do what I call sustained speech. So we give them like a skeleton of what they have to talk, and based on that they start speaking. And I've got, I record them as well, so it's not that they read or anything, it's in class. So yeah, the course actually focuses on the oral activities. They can do everything else at home.
So that they speak a lot, right?
They do, Ben, right? I mean, but you listen to some, yeah, but you listen to some of my...
I mean that most of their tasks are speaking, right?
Most of them, yeah. So they may have like some mistakes when they write and everything, but the emphasis is on the oral production.
Something to the question about the actual levels. When I use AI to create something for my class, I have to specify the level in the prompt. And when I give prompts to my students, I also ask them to specify their level. Sometimes I do both, actual and the European framework. I don't know if that makes any difference, but yeah, I use those indicators in my prompt. Yeah.
Everybody hear me?
Yes.
Just project a little bit more. All the presentations today have been really inspiring. And here's my question, and I think it's for everybody in the room, not just for the presenters, which is when you come from schools that have a very large infrastructure that allows you to create these beautiful interfaces, right, it doesn't bring about this question of inequity, right, among different schools, right? So you were able to get a grant from Princeton. I think Nicole, I don't know if she's still here. Nicole is coming from Harvard. Other schools that are doing these really, I guess, again, the interface is beautiful. And you've already talked about the fact that using these avatars is an expense, right? So you get the grants to do it. And there's always this sense of, is the monetization coming next, right? So how do we begin to say, yes, this is wonderful, but now we're going to sell it to other institutions. And then we get to this sort of odd phase, right? So the technology then becomes the haves and the haves not. Smaller schools can't do it, but larger schools can. So this isn't anything against these programs. They are beautiful, right? I look forward to doing it. But one of the things I was happy to hear Veronica say was that the program that they're developing here at Villanova is basically going to be an open resource so that we can take to our campuses and use it. So again, nothing against anybody's beautiful program. I think we just have to keep it in mind that not every student will have access to these materials. So how do we get them to have access to these wonderful things that we're doing? So there I go.
Because I totally agree with you. I mean, all my family is in Argentina with a lot of problems economically, you must have read. So it is something that I was working on these avatars and everything in Argentina this summer. And of course I was showing them, oh, look at this, in video, and the blah, 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 and I say, oh, Mom, we don't have this, you know? And it generates not across, in the United States, across all the schools and universities. Something that worries me is about countries. So who's going to be there? I mean, it's the powerful countries as always. So it's not just across universities or schools here in the United States. It's about the countries. So yes, I think, and I'm not going to say anything about, but curiously, all the companies, and I don't know if I'm doing this right, but companies, for example, coming that are working, and I told you that again, if they are produced like in Canada, for example, like Pretty Body, that is a Canada place. There is another that I was investigating that comes from Berlin, Germany, and there is another which comes from UK. They are kind of very inexpensive. The minute they get into the United States, do you agree or no? I mean, I honestly, this is what is happening. So I believe that with time, as with everything, the more people use it, I think that the price is going to come down. And there is another thing. All these things or companies, the giants, as they call it, they do not have education in mind, because education is not where the money is. So they are producing all these things for companies to sell products. So like, for example, all these avatars and this is just for companies to sell things, right, for the customer. And so they need the avatar or the bot to have feelings. What feelings? Just to detect the feeling of the customer, whether to entice them to buy or not. So I believe that with time, these prices are going to get down. That's what I believe, right? Yes, if you agree with that. But I totally agree with you, and I'm kind of angry because of this.
Yeah. I read recently on Wikipedia that Princeton University has a $35 billion endowment, and that to me is gross. That's kind of disgusting.
Yes.
But it has absolutely nothing to do with the work that we've done. I work in the McGraw Center for Teaching and Learning at Princeton University, and we don't have anything close to that kind of endowment. The technologies that I'm talking about here cost pennies. JavaScript, which is most of the programming, is open source and doesn't cost anything at all. I checked with my colleague on the budget for our OpenAI account prior to coming here, because I was afraid we might run out of funds. We started with $100 last February, and we have $88 left. So in all those months, of testing and using with students and everything, we spent $12. So I really push back on the idea that you need a lot of money to do this. Some projects, I think the Harvard Nichols project, she hired outside developers and of course that less. But the things we've been doing are really on the cheap.
I got the grants because I'm currently working on avatars to see if there is a positive impact on learning vocabulary. So this is my advanced research, and that's why I got the money to buy all these licenses and everything. But
There is a question.
Oh no, I just wanted to comment on the project that we had. Yeah, hi, I was asked.
I didn't mean to speak for you, I'm sorry.
No. I mean, there was funding, obviously, that went into the VR project. That was a very extensive project. And there was funding that went into the development of AI. But there's also relationships that you can establish with these companies. The project that I designed is in tandem with that company, who also wanted to develop pedagogical use cases. And so this is a relationship that I have had over a number of years. And so we had worked together, and it was sort of the knowledge base that I had and the knowledge base that I didn't have, and we kind of came together. And because of that, the money involved wasn't as extensive as you would think, because we were both campaigning relationship from the project that we were working on. So I think that there are ways to kind of work around some of these things. If you want to build out by working creatively with different people in different departments and moving outside of your own department and even your own institution to create something.
Any other question? Comment?
I was going to comment too, thank you so much. I'm from the University of Pennsylvania. Of course, we have also large resources, but working with our technology director who was here with us as well, and of course with instructional technology, Penn is really in some forms also very restrictive because of our privacy issues. And we cannot, for instance, embed in Canvas any kind of platform softwares that have not been heavily vetted by our instructional technology. Therefore, we really throw a lot of things out. Either they become too expensive, or it just doesn't make sense because not enough people use them. So the exploration that's going on, as far as I understand, with ChatGPT right now, is really outside of the university's vetted programs that are being supported and where the students are protected. So that, I think, will become also, in a way, a part of the discussion. It needs to be part of the discussion, how volatile the information of the students actually is. And so that kind of comes in. And I think any university that goes into exploration in this generative AI as we go into the future needs to consider this very, very seriously. I agree with you, Mr. Advocate. But it's here already. It's not like this is just gone. It's already all here. It's been here for decades and even for centuries. It's here. So it's a matter of, yes, how do you leverage that and who has access to certain things.
Okay, I think that we have enough for today. So we'll be ending the session today. We have the coffee break until 5 p.m. We will be hosting the keynote lecture. Lauren Duber from Cornell University. She will be talking about the humanities in the child of language generation and creation. Thank you so much for having us.